Hi, it's Kelsey, and today I'm doing a book ramble. I'm gonna call it a book ramble because this is the first book talk thing I've done before, and also it's a little different because it's talking about a book on the craft of writing as opposed to just a normal fiction novel. So first I'd like to start off by saying if you're not already following her, you can follow Molly Reads on YouTube. She's super sweet. I don't know her personally, but she's the one that got me to read this book, first of all. She just started doing this thing where she picks one book a month, and you can join in. I joined in, you can do it, we can all do it, and then you talk about the book at the end of the month. But I think she's an editor, so she talks about a book that involves some sort of craft of writing. So this is it right here. I don't even think this focus thing actually works, but it's the Gotham Writers Workshop to Writing Fiction, the practical guide from New York's acclaimed creative writing school. Without further ado, here is my ramble. This wasn't pre-filmed or anything, so I'm sorry if it's a little scattered. I have some notes here that I'll be looking at, and then I will relay to you my thoughts kind of like from beginning to end. So one of the things I liked about this book is it had a lot of great examples. I hate when a book tells you kind of like how to do something or gives you advice and then doesn't follow up with an example to show me how it's worked into something. One of the main stories that they mention and use as an example is from a short story called Cathedral, and it's actually in the back of the book. They have it in the appendix by Raymond Carver. And I never actually read the whole short story. I still haven't. I probably should, but it's okay if you haven't. The examples work well without having to even read it. They do mention some other books. I know they mention One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and they mention The Swimmer, which I'm familiar with from school. They mention All the Things I Carried, I believe, and they mention quite a few other short stories. A lot of them, if you are in school right now, you might be familiar with them. There are a couple books that they talk about that they spoil the part for you, and maybe you should already know it, or maybe like it's an obvious ending or something, but they talked about the ending of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which I really want to read, and they tell you the ending. And in this book, let me just say, it's on page 33 at the bottom. Don't read it if you don't want to know. Another thing is that they have a lot of exercises within this book. I mean, they have one every 3 pages pretty much, and I thought that was cool because it does give you exercises that have to do with the chapter that you're reading. But the thing about that is I'm reading it and then I get to the exercise, and I'm one of those people that feel like if I'm going to do my all, like if I'm really going to contribute to reading this the way it's written, I need to be doing these examples. And after page 20, I had to get over that because there's no way you'd finish this if you're doing all of these exercises. I think that if you are reading a book on the craft of fiction, obviously you should be wanting to write and using some of the advice that they give you in here. But I'm really focused on writing my novel right now, which is kind of why I'm reading this. And so for me, I didn't want to do this side example of write this short story, try and write this short story about something. I did do about 5 or 6 of the exercises in here, which is really cool and handy. But then it just got me into all these different tangents where I'm thinking about all of these other books that I could be writing right now, and I don't need that because I have too many ideas already. So it is really, really great for kind of getting you to start imagining other books that you could write. And it's a good start if you're trying to write a story or a short story or a novel or anything. Page 38 I wrote down. I have a really good list in here about questions that you should ask about your character that you're writing, and you can find some of these on the internet too, but I found this has a really good list. There's an entire page and a half pretty much. So some of the questions: who are your character's friends and family? Where does your character go to when he's angry? What is her biggest fear? And obviously some of these things aren't going to be things that you need to even really involve in your book, but they are going to be things that if you know about the character, it makes them easier to write about. And it makes it easier to pull from what would they say is dialogue, or how would they deal with things based on their past and their history. So I thought that was really helpful. In the very back of the book, after you've read everything, they have a cheat sheet, which is awesome. So it has the same things. They have it divided into character, plot, point of view, description, dialogue, and then there's questions along with each of those categories to kind of make sure that you're getting everything. So for point of view, does it work best in first, second, or third person? Under the category description, it says, Are your descriptions specific enough? Are you using telling details? And you'll learn about what these are in each chapter. They have dialogue. Are you using dialogue and scenes for the more important points in your story? Yeah, setting and pacing, voice, theme, revision. So these are all the chapters pretty much that are in the book, but at the end they have questions that you can flip through real quickly, so that way you're not having to go back each time. One of the exercises I really liked is on page 48, and it says, return to the character for whom you filled out the questionnaire, and that was in a previous exercise, but you can just start from this. It says you're going to put this now fictional person into the world and let him reveal himself. Imagine this person is entering the waiting room of a therapist's office for the first time. The type of therapy is up to you. It may even include bringing a spouse or a pet. Chances are this person will be feeling a little bit stressed. Keeping the character in the waiting room, write a passage where he is revealed through all 4 of these showing methods: action, speech, appearance, and thought. And for a bonus round, you can put this character in an even more stressful situation, like observing someone being held at gunpoint. So I actually really like the therapist one first, or better. I never thought about that before, but thinking about my character, if they were in the waiting line for a therapist, what would they be there for? You know, what are they going through at the moment? Your characters, you know, an in-depth character is always going to be going through something in part of the novel. So I thought that was a great exercise. Page 71. They spoil the ending of East of Eden. I said there needs to be a big old asterisk telling me that I'm getting a spoiler, because East of Eden, I've heard so many great things about this. So I was really sad about that. So I added some coffee and a light because the sun's going down and I'm a little bit tired. But we're back. Okay, so there's this great exercise in this book about letters, and it asks you to picture your character writing a letter to someone. So for example, your character could be writing a letter to her parents whom she ran away from when she was young, and the character could be writing to her loved one that's long distance, or to someone who died. But anyways, I thought that was such a great idea, and I'm trying to get back into writing letters, so I was like, oh, what if I had my character write me a letter? Obviously I'm writing it, but I would like put it in my mailbox and open it and everything, so it'd be like a fun little experiment. Maybe I'll do that and then read to you the letter that I wrote. I would love for us to do some like writing exercises together, and then either as like a video response, I don't know how to do that, but either as a video response or your own video, you can talk about what you've gotten out of the exercise, or you can just share the stuff that you wrote. Then they had this great, okay, so second person is when you're talking in terms of you, so you're talking kind of to the audience, but you can choose whoever it is. So instead of like I carried, or saying she carried, or the handmaiden sent something to whoever, you say you, so you're kind of talking to the reader. They have this great example. Can you see that? Oh man. Okay. Anyways, that was fun. I'm gonna just read this because it's beautiful. So I'm reading this directly, I'm not talking to you. Okay, so this is a second person POV, and it's from the book Bright Lights, Big City by Jay McGurney. So it says, you are at a nightclub talking to a girl with a shaved head. The club is either Heartbreak or Lizard Lounge. All might come clear if you could just slip into the bathroom and do a little more Bolivian marching powder. Your brain at this moment is composed of brigades of tiny Bolivian soldiers. They are tired and muddy from their long march through the night. There are holes in their boots and they are hungry. They need to be fed. They need the Bolivian marching powder. I don't know why, but that sounded so interesting to me, and it's about this guy that's kind of just going through his experience in New York, and he's going to nightclubs and having drugs and stuff like that. Apparently, I'm pretty sure that's what I looked up. But immediately after I read this, I love this. Just the second person POV is so interesting to me. So I ordered the book. So I will be reading that. I don't know when, but I would like to add it to the top of my list just so I have experience reading a book in second person POV. I've done a short story POV actually from the character itself was a book, so the book is talking to the reader kind of. And I'd like to play around with that more, and maybe I'll share it. So then they had this example in terms of POV, talking about characters in terms of camera shots. You could be farther away from your character, so you could think of like long distance, such as a panning shot of a whole city and you just see the character sitting down, or you could think of like an airplane and the character is in one single car driving on a road, or you could be as close to the character as being in that car with them. You can be as close to the character as being inside their head, you know. But I just like that connection that they connected it to, like a camera shot is how you can think of POV, so that really helped me. They have a good section on adjectives and adverbs. The thing about this book is that they don't go into specific detail, like they don't spend a long time talking about adjectives and adverbs, but they remind you that that's something that you should look into yourself. So when I wrote notes, I need to go back over this on my own time somewhere else to kind of revisit that. Another thing that they talked about in this book is listening to people's conversations, you know, kind of eavesdropping, I guess, but just think of it as work, okay? That makes it okay, maybe. But you can jot things down, or you can just remember what they say. I did this in my class, and we had to write down 3 conversations that we heard. And it's just interesting. It's mostly to talk about dialogue. Overall, the least section I liked was on voice. It was just, for me, it is kind of hard to understand what a voice is. It's hard to kind of explain that too, just through words. And I didn't really think that the book did a great job of understanding it. And then the people were like, you know what, don't try and categorize voice because it's too hard. And I'm like, why did you even try with it? I really liked the chapter on setting, but one of my favorite parts was actually the ending, the part about getting published and the sending it off to publishers and to an agent and things like that. And at first I was like, I don't really need to know this, you know, I'm just editing my novel right now. I don't really want to think about publishing it, and I was like, I could just probably end the book here. But it ended up actually being like one of my favorite sections. It talked about, you know, getting the right agent for you and how you go about publishing, and it had some good resources for, you know, where to look to get into, to find an agent, and where to send your book off to and things like that, like the publishers market books. But it was actually really inspiring. I love the ending of the book. I love how they rounded it out that way. So the book definitely had great exercises, great examples, except for when they ruined some of the endings for me. Overall, good advice. I would say it doesn't go specifically into detail about certain things, like the outline, or specifically like how to do setting well, or how to create complete complex characters. So it is like a good basic outline of getting you into something, but I would probably look for another book to get me into the specifics for certain sections in this book. But it was definitely a good read, and I would recommend it to you, so go check it out. If you have any book recommendations on writing craft, please leave them down below. If you have read this book too, let me know what you thought about it. And I'm sorry that my video was so rambly. Hopefully it'll get better over time, but I appreciate you watching it. I really appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, we're done.